Good afternoon and good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel and coffee stream number 187. And it's Wednesday, which means it's another edition of Wednesdays with Skep. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm fine. I feel like I'm just an appendage that's hanging off my sore tooth. Uh, uh, I have a lot of friends on the stream, and they know that I've been having some tooth trouble.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to have this surgery on Monday of this week. And I get there, and my surgical assistant didn't come in. We can't do it. We're going to have to
Wait, you had to
reschedule.
show up for them to tell you that? They didn't even
Oh, yeah.
call you?
Well, it was one of these things where the assistant didn't call in. And so I sat there and waited, and she's still not here. She's still not here. Okay, she finally called in. Her kid is sick, blah, 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 blah. I get it. It happens. And,
Oh.
it was only, and it's only an hour and 10-minute drive one way.
Oh my God.
I know.
That is like, okay, that would be like me and Pincalo having to drive to Toronto.
Yeah.
Just to be told, sorry, we need to reschedule.
Yeah, I'm in Southeast Dallas, and this is Northwest Fort Worth.
Oh,
it is
Lord.
absolutely as far away from me as you can get and still be in DFW. So she's a great dentist, world-class dentist, and you don't give up on somebody like that. And this has never happened before, and it just happened. So anyway, wine. I'm here. I tried to wind myself into some narcotics, and they give you this pseudo narcotic called tramadol, which does absolutely nothing. Ibuprofen has more of an effect than tramadol does, because tramadol is basically, we'll go just do a tiny bit of biochemistry here. I promise it won't hurt. You've said that before, haven't you? Anyway, bend over. Anyway, the way that opiates work, narcotics work to relieve pain, is they have a little biomechanical lock. It's actually a biochemical lock. And it actually mechanically fills a receptor site with certain chemicals that are aligned in exactly the right way. And they just nestle right up in there, and they prevent the receipt of pain impulses to that part of the nerve. Okay. So that by blocking that site, they do a number of things. Okay. One of the things that it does, and opiates famously do, is you can't poop, because that's one of the other nerves that it blocks. Okay,
most opiates have that issue, I think.
Absolutely. So, and there's some other things too. So it depresses your respiration, and it makes it hard to swallow things. Swallowing pills is hard because it depresses the whole vagus nerve and all the nerves that help you in swallowing. So the guys who make tramadol said, we're going to make a better narcotic. We're going to make a non-addictive, non-euphoric narcotic. We're going to take these biochemical locks out of there and just leave in the ones that are associated with pain receptors, and take all these negative ones out.
Okay.
And so they produced basically a sugar pill. Because
I was about to ask, is it a placebo?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It is a placebo, because here's what they did. By taking all the biochemical locks out, they also removed the ones that they removed almost all the ones that are useful in deterring pain. I think there's 8 receptor sites, and they removed 6 of them.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah. So they took away 75% of the pain relieving capability of opiates. But hey, it won't get you high anymore, so the Presbyterians will be happy. The Calvinists will be happy, because nobody's having any fun. And that's the way life should be. So everybody said, hey, we have this. It's just as good. And this is the way it was sold to the FDA. And the FDA gleefully jumped on the bandwagon. They believed every study, all of which were sponsored by the company that developed this. They believed every study that was done that, hey, man, it's actually better than morphine. I mean, they were and it wasn't until it hit the market, and the market went, oh, and because patients just were up in arms about it, says this stuff doesn't work. And it was like the emperor's new clothes. The little boy said, hey, the emperor doesn't have any clothes on, and all the people realized it was okay to say that, and they all began explaining that it doesn't work. So
You know what that reminds me of?
but anyway, the fiction is maintained that this is what doctors are allowed to write, and this will relieve pain because the legislature says so, because bureaucrats say so, and so you feel better. Bureaucrats say so. Anyway, so go on.
So you know what that reminds me of? That it's just as good as?
Yes. What?
The
alcohol-free beer.
No,
My friends can't tell the difference.
The episode of Voyager where they run out of coffee and Neelix has this just as good as coffee substitute. For Janeway.
Right.
And she's like, no, fuck you. It's not coffee.
Neelix had a great idea.
Yes. And speaking of bureaucracy says that you're okay, so therefore you are.
Right.
Sargon did an actual Sargon video.
I watched it. I watched it at 2x just so I could get it watched in time for the stream.
It was great to see him back
in the saddle.
In the actual Sargon videos. I open my YouTube feed and I see Why We Hate Feminism 13 and I went, no way.
Yeah.
And I immediately watched it and it was good.
It had the visual was it had the Sargon idol in it. I mean, it was old time Sargon, and it was all the way through. It was
awesome, and he had good points to make, and had it was great. It was vintage Sargon, and it was so good to see. The
kidnappers have returned Sargon. The ransom was paid. And we have Sargon back.
V paid the ransom, and he made the journey and brought Sargon home.
Hooray for V!
And the YouTube skeptics can rejoice again.
There was much rejoicing across the land. So, no, that was it, and it wasn't that it didn't plow any new ground. It's just a restatement of all of Sargon's points against feminism. But the delightful thing was it was Sargon back, confident, doing what he does best, making a feature style video with about a topic that he was extremely well prepared for. It was very well put together, entertaining, interesting, and made you feel good.
Yeah.
Sargon was back. It just felt great to see that. I thank you so much for bringing that to my attention, by the way.
Maddie has a good point, though. She says, Sargon has always been good when he has a script. He's not so good when he's off the cuff. I will fully agree with you on that.
Oh, yeah. I don't
he is not an improvisational guy.
No, not in any way, shape, manner, or form.
But yes, you are right, Maddie. When he's got a script, he's awesome.
Yeah. Sargon, I read saying that Sargon interviewed Black Pigeon. And
that was a good interview. I believe.
Yeah, that was good. He did a good job. Sargon can do a good interview. He thinks logically enough and asks good questions. It's just that when he's doing the off the cuff commentary, that he's not. I find his streams boring.
Yeah,
I don't like it. So there you go.
Master Hurricane says, I don't know. I don't think I can watch Sargon anymore. He's lost some of his charm from being the regular guy. He seems less genuine and more smug. I can see your point. Yeah. I can see how a lot of fans would probably say that it's too little too late.
Let me say this in defense of Sargon. You have a guy who basically was going about his life, and he thought YouTube would be an interesting diversion. And he could get his point of view out there and, do his bit.
Yeah.
He became, he never expected to become as popular or famous as he did.
Yeah.
He was completely unprepared for it. He's enormously intelligent.
Yes.
He's an extremely intelligent man. He's pretty mature and mostly did not let this go to his head, but he's not a perfect person.
No.
And there were times which, and I think that's what you're saying, Mask, is that you react to the times when he didn't react well to his own fame, to his own importance. And I would agree with that. I think he would look at some of those times and probably cringe along with us. I've met and talked with him, had a good talk with him face to face. And I will tell you something. You know, I've been kicking around this earth for a long time, and I believe I can recognize phony people when I see them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing phony in him. He's just a guy. He really is just a guy. Puts on his pants one leg at a time. He's just he's just, and the other thing is, he has a kindness about him. People don't realize that about him. He is deeply kind. He was worn out the day that I saw him at MythCon.
Yeah.
He was absolutely worn out, and he sat there with his arm around me for 10 minutes, and we just sat there and talked like we were old friends.
That's awesome.
And he said, you got to, he called me Skip Talk.
Skip Talk.
And he said, you've got to get on my Discord.
Aw.
And all that stuff. And he believed that, communication between conservatives and traditionalists was going to be shut down in the interest of the state. I mean, he really does see some, it's going to be compromised at least, and certainly monitored. And he, a lot of what he has said has begun to come true. He's a smart guy. He can look ahead and see what's going to happen. I don't really find a lot of fault with him. It's not that he charmed my socks off. I'm way too old for that.
Yeah.
But it's that this was just a genuine good guy who is very talented in making videos, and the fact that he's not perfect does not put me off from it.
Well, and you can tell that all he wants, the only reason he's doing what he's doing is so that his son can grow up in a better country.
Yeah.
Like that's you can tell.
Yep.
His motivation is his kid. And
absolutely.
He wants his kid to grow up.
He only says it every other video.
Yeah.
He says, I'm a father. And we talked about that. In fact, he actually used that expression. He said, "You have kids." I said, "I have grandkids." And he said, "Well, even more than I." And we talked about the future and what it meant, what a feminist nightmare would look like, what a communist nightmare would look like.
Yeah, I'm glad that I hope he carries on doing the old style videos, and like he even said this is a blast from the past. But I hope he stays on that track.
Yep.
Someone in chat said, "Did you hear he's still trying to interview Trump?" No, I didn't actually, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. He may get a shot. So I guarantee you there are people in the White House who know who Sargon of Akkad is.
Oh, yeah.
And they are fans. I guarantee you they're fans. Hi, Eddie. Good to see you, bud.
Hey, buddy.
And I saw we got Addie and Maddie in the same chat.
And we got Irate, and we got
Snippet showed up.
And
Logic is here.
Logic, and Master Hirokin and Martin H. And Phantom Madness stopped by just to say hello before the stream started.
Seamus is here.
Seamus is also here. Yep, Pancalo's here.
Arms Killer is here. And let's see who else. I'm just going to run through real quick and make sure that we haven't forgotten. Oh, W.R. Costin is here.
Oh,
and so is Mr. Dex. And so we have quite an eclectic crowd today.
We sure do.
Pancalo's there. Hi, Pancalo.
And Uzi.
Oh, Phantom Madness is here. And just stopping by to say hey. Oh, I think you said that. Okay. So anyway.
Susie, hey,
Oh,
girl.
Susie here? I'm way
She
up in
just
chat.
said hi,
I'm way
just
up
down
in
at the
chat.
bottom.
Yeah. Hi. Hey, Uzi. How you doing? Uzi's awesome. I've had her on stream. I've had Irate Prostate and Uzi on the Minions broadcast. That's 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern Time on the Minions channel tonight.
Link in the
And
description.
link in the description, and Blind Press will be there.
I will indeed.
I hope.
Full of cake.
Full of cake.
We ordered a DQ cake for Alex yesterday, but we wanted a picture on it, and it takes them 24 hours to do the picture.
Thanks,
so his cake is coming tonight.
Martin says, "Nice plug, Skep." Law. Thanks, Martin. It's not obvious or anything like that.
No.
But yeah. Irate says, "Married to me, she's doing better than best." Yeah, I don't know, Irate. I'm feeling like you married out of your weight class, bud. just saying. And Uzi says she's sorry about my tooth. Thank you, Uzi. She's such a sweetie. That's a big-hearted person, truly. Yeah, you're way out of your class, Irate. Truth. Anyway,
ice cream cakes are awesome.
Oh, Moonshock's here.
Moonshock, hey, are you
He says, "I'm tuning into you guys for my 4th chemo infusion. Hope you're doing well." So he's over at his.
I hope you're doing well.
I think this might be his last in the series.
I think so too, because I think he said 4.
Yeah, I think he said 4 too.
And then he's got a year of one medication.
Yeah, of onesies, and then man, and this is precautionary, as I understand. That a lot of things about his situation look good. I don't want to get into the details of his case, even though he did on my show. And but we're all pulling for you, Moonshock. That's
absolutely.
Get well, bud. Feel well. Feel better. Get through this and come play with us. That's what it's all about.
Come play with us, Moonshock.
They've extended it to 6 from 4. Moonshock says. So
damn.
Yeah,
2 more.
One, but that's an abundance of caution. Once again, that's some oncologist, who's saying, let's just make goddamn sure of this, because those guys. One thing about oncologists, I went through this with Julian, my son-in-law, who did not make it through his cancer case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're fucking thorough.
Yes.
God. And they are cautious. They are the least optimistic people you will ever meet in your life. They are. It's just
They don't want to lead you wrong. They don't want to make you have false hope, right?
Yeah, and you see people who come in and their bodies are clean, and they've been basically cured of cancer, and the oncologists go, okay, good, that's the end of course of treatment for them. Next case. They don't celebrate. They don't do anything. It's just the dull drumbeat of cancer.
Yeah.
There are saints in that who do that for a living. That's for sure. I mean, there's also some, it's like anything else. There's good and bad, but there's fine people who do that for a living. Anyway, that said, we hope you're feeling better, Moonshock. And he says, thank you to everyone. I love you all. And Skep and Blind Press would love to be on your shows again soon. And you're welcome, Moonshock. That.
Absolutely.
So,
so did you see Lauren Chen's tweet this morning?
No. I've not been on Twitter much this morning. Let's see, what do we got?
So her tweet says something to the effect of, I never thought I'd say this, but I actually agree with AOC. There should be over-the-counter birth control. Women shouldn't have to deal with the burden of doctor's appointments and stuff like that.
I actually agree with that too. So, if you're gonna rain on AOC, let's get on with it. I do too. I do too. I believe in having no controls on drugs and medicines of any kind. I think there should be warnings on them, and that's all.
See, I think birth control is not something you should fuck around with because it's a hormonal.
I I agree with you. It's definitely not something you should fuck around with because it's a hormonal thing. You should
That's
only take
why,
it under the guidance of a doctor.
yeah, that's why I don't.
That said, I want to live in a society where Dr. Darwin has a freer hand.
How do you have that balance?
You say that you have a category of things that says we will sell this to you. We recommend that you do not take this except under the supervision of a doctor, and that's it. And you can either take that advice or not take that advice. Live or die by your decisions. Okay, I want personal responsibility back on people. I want people to think about the decisions that they make. A society that has all these regulatory bodies coddling people, telling them how to live, shielding them from, choices, eventually bruise millennials that just want safe spaces, and they don't want to do hard things like math and science anymore because it's hard and it gives them stress, and they just want to play games and eat Cheetos and Orange Band Bad. And I don't want that society.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that is the regulation of drugs and the regulation of lots of things. Now, does that mean that I want to live in a society without seatbelts and automobiles? No, I don't, because sometimes your behavior influences what happens to other people. Okay, you wearing a seatbelt, believe it or not, can make a difference in whether or not uh, after an initial impact, you can control your car. If you're if your seatbelt has held you in place and kept you conscious, you might be able to steer out of it. And my point is in saying anything that has an obvious and direct effect on other people, yes, that has to be regulated. There is a role for government to play. I just don't think it has anything to do with drugs. That is a hangover from Presbyterianism, from Calvinism, that says, no, suffering is good. God
Yeah.
loves to hear the suffering of children. He loves to hear their screams of pain because he knows that those are offerings to him. That's in the Bible, by the way. Did you know that? That's in the Old Testament.
Hmm.
Yes, indeed. Not the screams of children, but the screams of your suffering is an offering to him. And that is something that is the basis for many for much tortures of nuns and monks in monasteries and nunneries by mother superiors and abbots, uh, because somehow suffering became good. Suffering is not good. Suffering
Job
sucks.
became somebody to idolize.
Well, yeah. And Job was actually tortured by God on
Yes,
purpose,
yes, he was.
and at least according to the story. And but
It
in
was to
point of
it was
fact,
to try and get him not to believe in God, wasn't it?
right. Well, that was the idea. That's what they said it was. That's the way they turned it. But in point of fact, it was a metaphor for the fact that life can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's that. If you look at how the brighter scholars of Judaism, like Maimonides, took it, life is hard.
Yeah.
Uh, stay close to your loved ones. Try and keep your eye on the ball no matter what. That's really the lesson that's taught by Job. If you want to look for the real lesson, now if you asked my old Baptist preacher what the lesson taught by Job is, he would say it's literally that Job was in direct contact with God and had a conversation with God, and that this was about a debate between God and the devil as to whether or not Job would crack.
Yeah.
And so, whether you take it literally or if you take it symbolically, it has that's going to uh, vary the amount of value I think that the story may have for you. But anyway, I understand, and reasonable people may disagree. You feel better with the government regulating that kind of stuff. I want to live in a society where people have to make more decisions. I'm a little bit of an idealist like that. You might even be a little bit more realistic than I am. I'm willing to admit that. Look, I'm not a perfect person. I'm just saying I represent a libertarian ideal, and if there was a book a few years ago that was edited. It was a group of essays. It was edited by a lady named Gertrude Himmelfarb, who is a famous conservative, and the other editor was Digby Anderson, both contributing editors to the National Review, and very good friends of William F. Buckley. The name of the book was "This Will Hurt," and what this was a return to conservatism, or almost anarcho libertarianism, really a libertarian informed conservatism. Which, if you look at Buckley, he used to say that libertarianism was the poetry of conservatism.
Yeah,
and he was a conservatarian at heart. He loved the idea of small government. He was a small government conservative. That was the one thing he couldn't forgive Reagan for. Was
Right.
Reagan was a big government conservative, and he wanted a smaller government. So anyway, the name this book is about what it would take to really turn things around into a fundamentally better society. And the one thing that all the essays have, all the prescriptions, all the policy prescriptions that they have in common is it's going to hurt. People are going to die. People are going to suffer. People are going to have bad lives, and their children will have bad lives. It'll take about 2 generations, at least 2 generations, if we're really on top of it, to begin to reap the rewards of living according to the dictates in the essays in this book.
Yeah.
Now it's really about kind of the combination of the golden rule, not many rules in society, and in basing the way that you think about your life and your day-to-day decisions on personal responsibility, on having it be an important part of your life to be well informed about a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
There are so many people. I remember I was interviewing I wasn't interviewing. I was actually talking with a lady who had been recently hired. She had a Bachelor of Science from UCal Berkeley. This is not in computer science. This is not a stupid person. Okay, this is not a gender studies degree. This is a person who has had advanced mathematics and engineering.
Right.
Okay, she was a bright young hire, and I was talking with her, and we were talking about what year we were born, and I said I was born during the Truman administration, which I was. 1952, Harry Truman was president of the United States.
Yeah.
And she said, Truman, he was a president?
Oh, dear Jesus.
I know. She said, I didn't realize there was a president named Truman. I thought that was just the show. And I sat down, and just put my head in my hands. And one of my friends patted me on the shoulder, said, there. And we told her who Harry Truman was. And she said, oh, he was not Roosevelt, was he? And no.
Did you say Roosevelt? No, you said Truman. Are
Right.
you deaf too?
She was completely. The other thing was she didn't know that there were 2 different Roosevelts, or that they were related. She thought Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt were the same person.
What? And this was an American.
Yeah, this is an American. Grew up in California.
How is it?
A surfer girl with an affinity for math, basically.
How is it that Canadians know this shit
I know.
better than you guys?
I know. So this is why I say that I think it's important that people have a working knowledge of both history and current events, civic affairs, and life, making good decisions about life. And that's part of being brought up correctly. And the people who will thrive will be the ones who are well prepared by their life as children and are aware of what the choices are out there, what the pitfalls are, know how to avoid them, and they will compete successfully. Dr. Darwin actually runs the whole show. He doesn't just run, the Darwin Awards. That's a festive part of what he does and a fun part of what he does, of course. But it's only part. He runs all the rest of it too.
Yeah, that's true.
And so anyway,
Pinkalo says she's an example of why you shouldn't drink too much salt water.
that's probably true. She later on it came out she was horrified that when she found out I had served in the military.
Horrified, huh?
Yeah, she was
Because
horrified.
the military is evil, right?
That's what she said. She said, "I wish we didn't need a military." She said, "I'm not even sure we do need a military." I said,
You
"You
know,
just keep thinking, Butch. That's what you're good at."
it makes me so angry when people say that, because it's always people who would never, ever, ever, ever put their lives on the line for anything
Exactly.
that say shit like that.
Oh, this was a woman who was turned out to be utterly selfish, and also we fired her 6 months later. She turned out to be completely incompetent. She was actually assigned to a project team that I was on. I wasn't. I didn't supervise her. I was doing the hardware and systems stuff on the team, and she was one of the programmers. And it turned out she had a degree from UCal Berkeley, but she couldn't program for shit. And finally, the program director said, "I can't use this woman on our
Back when UC
our
Berkeley
program.
was a
We would rather
good
not
school.
have her on on the team."
Wow.
And it turned out she was just using the project. She wasn't doing any of the work. She was using the project to fly down from Seattle to Alameda to see her girlfriend. And then one time she flew down. She was told to stay in Seattle, and she flew down anyway and demanded reimbursement. And that was when they fired her.
Well
Yep,
done.
true story. True story. Interesting times. So
So the saying "learn to code" had some meaning there.
it, people laugh about that. I was in the middle of that world. I was in the heart of that world. That was Silicon Valley. That was Alameda, California. It was the northern part of Silicon Valley. And yeah, it's real. It's real. Learn to code. Anyway, interesting stuff. So what have you done in the last week? What interesting things have happened to you in the last week? Anything?
Well, Alex's head is healing nicely.
Yay.
He still has a bit of a bump, like if you touch his head in the spot.
Did he have to get a stitch?
He has one stitch, yeah.
Oh, so he did get a stitch. All right.
Yeah. They gave him one of those dissolving sutures, so it should be gone by Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, he still has a bit of a lump on his head.
Old guy.
And I
that whole gravity thing. It's 9.8 meters per second squared.
Yeah, I know,
Not
right?
just a good idea. It's the law.
What I told him on Monday when I showed up when I dropped him off at school, I said, "Remember, no catching rocks with your head." And the teachers laughed. The teachers thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Well, and my mom wanted me to have this whole big meeting with the school, because she told me that when the ambulance people asked how big the rock was, the teacher mouthed at them it was really big instead of actually verbalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And mom is all butthurt on my behalf. because they didn't tell the blind person how big the rock was. And
what that was her getting attention to show how outraged she was on your behalf.
yeah, and she's like still wants me to have a meeting with the school and have her there, and it's like
I know passive aggressive when I see it.
I'm just like, no, mom, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Everything, like, it's not like they didn't call me. It's not like they went, oh, she's blind. We're not gonna call her. We're just gonna call everyone else on the contact sheet.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
had they done that, then I would have had an issue. But they were just trying to keep the situation as under control as possible.
Yep.
There doesn't need, like, they like me there. We have a good rapport. We don't have to have, I don't want them, like, I don't want to switch the rapport to, at the first sign of trouble, she's gonna, pull the accessibility card.
Right.
And like, and my mom's even like, oh, I have a friend at the school board we can talk to if this goes wrong. I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Mom.
These people won't have jobs. We'll have them sentenced to thousands of years of hard labor. Easy,
Like,
Mom.
like I understand, like, she can be a great advocate. Like when I was giving birth to Alex at the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and Pincolo had to go back to work the next day, and they kept us in for almost 3 days because he had jaundice.
Yep.
But there was also some blindness related issues going on. And the lactation consultant told me at 23 hours, at Alex's 23 hours old, that I should just switch to formula feeding because he wasn't latching right. And, I can't see. So I should just stop trying.
Right.
But mom, mom pulled her aside in the hallway and pointed out the logic of, do you realize how hard it would be to measure accurately the amount of formula at 2:00 in the morning when you can't see what you're doing and your baby is screaming for its bottle 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Like,
were you having trouble making milk or anything?
No, my milk was coming in. He was just having trouble latching, and
that's
a very
problem
normal
that
thing.
will solve itself.
Yeah, but they were treating it as it was a sight thing, and
they get hungry and they figure it out. They really do.
Well, see, and the lactation people were just so confounded by me being blind that they just had no idea how to help.
Yeah, they
and
were.
Like, so, and thankfully my mom was there because I was so tired and so hormonal that I was just not in an advocacy
Yeah, you were
headspace.
Yeah.
But that's a far cry from what happened on Friday.
Well, the thing is that, being in the right and advocating for somebody and doing the right thing, that's heady wine. That makes you feel good. That gives you a big dopamine hit. And she just wanted more. And she was looking for more. And she just, went down an inappropriate route. So, it's almost like she's human.
She can, like I said, she has her great qualities. Like, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be the person I am, right? Like, she was the one who taught me to advocate for myself. She was the one who, like, because of her, I don't do any of the, quote unquote blindisms that, you see. Like, I don't rock. I look at people in the face when I talk to them. All that stuff.
Right.
But if she can get herself some attention.
Interesting. She's just a human being. That's all. She likes her strokes, and we all do. We all do that in one way or another. But it's. I think you're lucky to have her.
I am.
And I think that
she drives me crazy sometimes, but I'm lucky that I have her.
No, I think she's a hella mom.
Yeah.
And hella is actually a term that came into usage in 2002. Did you know that?
Actually, I did, because I was alive then.
It,
um, what's its origin? Does it say?
yeah, it actually probably came from a group called No Doubt's 2001 hit,
Hella good.
Hella Good. Right, exactly.
That was a good song.
That seems to be the first mention of it. South Park picked it up rapidement,
Yes,
ra-
they did. In the
and
Halloween episode.
the Halloween episode exactly. So you know what I'm talking about.
That was a great episord.
So
Good Cartman and evil Cartman.
good Cartman and evil Cartman. I got to thinking about words and word origins, and had occasion to look up a couple of them this week for different tweets and stuff. And one of the things that I looked up was, I called somebody, I said Madonna is not exactly the it girl anymore, and somebody said, "What is the it girl?" And I went, "Really? You don't know what the it girl means?" And it turns out that the it girl was a term from 1927,
Oh, wow.
and it was from a magazine article about Clara Bow, who was a movie star of the time. She was actually a silent movie star, Clara Bow, and she was very curvy, and, kind of a pinup girl, starlet who became a star, and she became the it girl. She was in all the magazines and so forth, and she really was one of the first of the stars in that. Who they they're basically produced by the um, movie production houses, and with their publicity teams and so forth, they get in all the magazines, and everybody knows their name and face. And Clara Bow was the it girl. She was kind of one of the original ones, and that came from
Interesting.
1927. So I started looking into slang in the Oxford English Dictionary and in my Dictionary of American Slang, and I went year by year, and I noticed the next year we have the uh, the entry into the American lexicon of the word baloney for bullshit as a polite word for bullshit.
Oh, really?
The Saturday Evening Post in 1928 the guy he wanted to use the term bullshit, didn't couldn't get it past the editor, and the editor suggested, "Why don't you just say baloney?" And everybody know, and so they talked it as they called it a bunch of baloney,
Huh.
and they spelled it Balony. So it's not even the right spelling of
No, it's not.
baloney. It's not Bologna, like the Italian spelling. It's baloney, and so that's pretty easy to name down.
Yeah.
And uh, anyway, I've got zillions of these words because I went spurgacious on this stuff, and so I basically have about a word for every year from 1927 to about 2006, I think.
Skip
I
talking his etymology of words.
Oh man, it's I wanted to know where Booksy came from, and that was a term from 1930, or snazzy 1931. The word burp enters our lexicon in 1932,
Hmm.
and boffo in 1934.
What's Boffo? I've never heard that one.
Boffo, the word originated from the burgeoning comedy scene where a line that delivered a big laugh was a boffo.
Hmm.
And it was actually used in a write up of a show, a review of a show in the New York Times.
Interesting.
Um, but the one that I wanted to point out that came from this era right here was Gramps. And
Gramps.
this could relate to your grandpa or any other person you felt like, wait for it, insulting. It was an extremely insulting term back in the day. Now
Hmm.
it's just sort of an affectionate term. You
Yeah.
call somebody Gramps. And but in 1935, it meant somebody who was old, out of step, didn't know shit. I guess it could really be me, but the shoe fits, right? But
That's really interesting.
yeah, it was an extremely negative thing to call somebody. So anyway, I thought I would just get a few of those out there, and if people want to hear more from my little list of words later on in the show, I figured we could do that. And um, you know what? I I hate to say this. I am going to stand up and walk over and get some ibuprofen. And
No worries. I just found an article, so I'm gonna.
give me about 1 minute. I'll be right back.
No worries. Get your painkillers.
I wish I had some narcotics. Damn it! All right, I'll be right back.
So, guys, let's read about Sanjit Javid. And so Sanjit Javid puts rivals on the spot over Tory party Islamophobia. And the subheading is No Dissent from Other Candidates in TV Debate as Home Secretary calls for independent investigation. Why are the Tories being accused of Islamophobia? Interesting. So it says all of the remaining Tory leadership candidates have committed to all of the remaining Tory leadership candidates have committed to commissioning, that's hard to say, committed to commissioning an independent investigation into Islamophobia in the Conservative Party should they win the contest. So if they win the election, they have agreed that they will call an independent commission into Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. Does the Labour Party have to commit to commissioning a independent investigation on your anti-Semitic behavior there? Or is it just the Tories that have to self-flagellate for their supposed Islamophobia? Because I'm seeing sort of a double standard here. So it continues on to say, the Home Secretary Sanjit Javid, a Muslim, has previously called for such action to be taken and asked each of his colleagues to back him. Tuesday night's hour-long TV debate, each appeared to nod and express agreement. Of course, because they're all cucks. The UK is lost, says Sir Adamantine. You know what? It really is. Islamophobia is a very rational fear, though, says Jolly Rogers Bilgewater. Yeah, you know what? It is. So, we're talking about how Sanjit Javid has basically said that the Tories need to have an independent investigation into why they're so Islamophobic if they win the election. But the Labour Party doesn't have to look into their anti-Semitism. It's just the Tories.
No, there's no anti-Semitism in Labour.
No, they're perfect.
You know, some people will take a bottle of pain reliever. They'll take the last tablet and they'll leave the bottle up.
Oh no, is that what just happened to you?
Yeah, yes, that's what just now we had more.
Good.
I had to go find it. But I have a random wife. I love her, but it's just living together. I know what it was. She got up in the middle of the night, wasn't thinking about it, and just downed some ibuprofen. It's the thing about getting old; you have aches and pains.
Yeah.
And you buy this stuff by the case.
So go to Costco and get case of ibuprofen.
Straight up, that's not too far off. We do buy the big jars of it,
Yeah.
like the 500 tablets.
Yeah.
Seriously, absolutely. I would say that I probably take 3 to 4 every day, just from aches and pains. It's a life of fun.
Texas needs to legalize weed.
Yeah, legalize weed, legalize opiates, legalize heroin, legalize everything. Let's put the decision back in the hands of the people who need to learn about that stuff, the people who need to control their lives. Give people their freedom back. Otherwise, you end up with a state that controls people.
Yeah.
If you take freedom away from people, you take freedom away from people. I mean, it should be straightforward. This should be understandable. But people don't understand that. They don't realize that when you take freedom away from people, you also take consequences away from people, and people don't learn. So they don't know, you know, that to, you know, there are a lot of overdoses with opioids because people don't know how much to take.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that happens. It tends to not be people who are prescribed opioids, but people who get it illegitimately because it's so secret. If we made that information and the drugs themselves available to everybody, yes, we would have a spate of overdoses. We'd have to live through that, and then we would have a better educated populace, a more aware populace, and you learn hard lessons that way. It's better for the human race. I tend to think in big, broad terms, long terms, thousands of years, about what's going to happen to humanity. And a state that is overweening and is always there to catch you and doesn't let anything bad happen to you will become like academia has become for kids,
Yeah.
where it sucks the lifeblood out of them. It doesn't do any nourishing of their intellect, of their soul. It doesn't provide them any stress, and they don't grow as a result of it.
It's the same philosophy as parenting. You don't want to sit there and helicopter your kid.
Exactly.
You don't like the thing that I thank my mom for, even though I had to endure some pretty awful friendships and hurt, was that my mom never told me you can't hang out with X person.
Yes.
My mom always said, I don't like this person. Here's why.
And then she let you make your mistake.
And then she let me make my own mistakes.
Yep.
Now, they were awful, horrible mistakes, but I'm glad I had to make them. Because first of all, the minute you tell somebody who they can and cannot hang out with, they're just gonna go hang out with them more.
Absolutely.
Because that's how human beings are.
Why did the kids put beans in their ears?
Yeah.
They did it because we said no. There's some truth in
And
that.
that's probably the same thing with drugs. Is why are people doing so many illegal drugs? Because they're illegal.
Right. Yep.
And they're not supposed to.
Yep. Yep. It's
Thin the herd, says Sir Adamant.
well, he's not wrong. I mean, herd thinning is good if it's constructive herd thinning. If you're really getting rid of the calls, if you're getting rid of the people whose instincts lead them to make poor judgments, yes, it is. That's a good thing. This doesn't have anything to do with race, color, creed, or anything else. This has to do with the judgments you make and the choices you make. So, I'm not. I'm. It sounds like I'm bad mouthing, which was a word that came into being in 1939, by the way. And it came from sports, by the way. It was boxing. The Long before trash talking, there was bad mouthing. And bad mouthing was the taunting that fighters did before a prize fight.
Oh.
So
Okay.
yeah, he badmouthed me. I'm going to knock him out. That was what trash talking passed for. They called it badmouthing back in 1939. But
Back
anyway,
when things were more wholesome.
yeah, in some ways. I mean,
Yes.
back when polio was still, au courant. So, it wasn't all good back then. So it's like Jerry Seinfeld says, uh, people who long for the old days, like lived in the 1890s. I got one word for you: dentistry.
Yeah. You get the dentist, gets on top of you in the big chair and holds you the fuck down.
Absolutely. It's 12 o'clock, and I actually put asterisks by um by these terms that I really wanted to make sure got on the show today, and it's not very many of them. It's about 10 of them.
Sounds good.
So I,
Why
I
don't
just
you
want to
read
make
them
sure
off
that
while I go Bloodwing?
okay, you go Bloodwing, and I will talk about this. This is kind of interesting. In 1943, the word duh. Okay, this was a bit of a surprise. Okay, we associate duh with the 1990s because
Yes.
it was used as an offhanded remark in the 1940s, as a matter of fact, and it came from a Merry Melodies cartoon, and it was a kind of looked like either a cat or a cow. You couldn't really tell the type of character was kind of indeterminate between a giant cat or possibly a giant cow. And it's saying "duh," and that apparently was the first. It's to indicate stupidity, and that was the first appearance of that onomatopoeia of "duh." Then there was in 1944 there was tag along. Tag along was a military term that originally referred to a bomb, a, a a a bomb that was well, I won't get into that, but anyway, yeah, it was a type of bomb, and it was repurposed into slang to describe anybody who was unexpectedly joining in on your plans. So, somebody who just wanted to be along with you, and maybe you didn't want to be along. They were referred to as a tag along. The probably the biggest surprise out of all of these was what happened in 1945, the year World War II ended, was from the radio program "It's That Man Again" came the word "no." It was not Homer Simpson who invented that word, quite the contrary. The writers on The Simpsons took it from that program. One of them was familiar with that program, and that was actually the origin of that word in The Simpsons. Was that it came from "It's That Man Again" from something he had read about in college, and he loved that word and wrote it into Homer Simpson's uh, vocalization of negativity. Let's see. Jet Set in 1949 was concurrent with the advent of the first jets. And people think, well, that was the Boeing 707. No. It was not actually. It was the Convair and the Caravel jets from British Overseas Aerospace Corporation, BOAC, and the French Caravel was made. I can't remember what the contractor's name was, but these were beautiful looking jets. They were very gorgeous looking jets. The problem was they crashed a lot. That's
Oops.
why you don't hear much about the Caravella and the Convair. They were the mistakes that when people learned how to build jetliners, they were the ones that the Boeing folks went to school on. Said, okay, we're not going to build one with the tail that comes off like the Convair. That's a bad thing. And we're not going to build one with where the engines fall off like the Caravel. Even though it's a gorgeous looking plane, we're going to build our engine mounts a little more sturdy. And so that was the but the Jet Set came out, and that was came out in a bunch of gossip columns in 1949 to describe young people who were living fast, glamorously, and usually rich. And the following year, the word "beautiful people" came out, and it was also associated with the same thing, the successful and
Oh,
gorgeous individuals who worked in the Hollywood industry.
interesting.
But
So,
but but my favorite, and this was the second biggest surprise after Doe. I told him about Doe. Okay, the second biggest surprise was in 1951 was the invention of the word nerd.
hmm.
I thought nerd was a much newer word.
So did I. I thought it would be like an 80s.
In nerd is cited in Newsweek in 1951 and is defined as an alternative to the phrase square. So somebody who's a square, somebody who's studious and wears glasses and doesn't smoke cigarettes. That was what was defined as square. And the final one that of my asterisk ones for this area is a surprisingly early emergence of the word hippie in 1953.
Hmm.
And that was also from the American Dictionary of Slang says it came from Newsweek. The Oxford Dictionary says it came from Time magazine. And so I was not able to find either reference. I checked both references and both came up as null links.
Okay.
Which just means that they're not maintained by Time and Newsweek,
Right.
in their archive. And but Time or Newsweek, one of them probably in 1953 came up with the idea of hippies, and these were the guys who were very into jazz. Interestingly enough, it is a, it, it's coming into currency at about the same time as beatnik. Beatnik preceded it by about 3 or 4 years. So there you go. A few interesting words. I have many more words. I have many, many, many more words. As I said, I went full spurg on this, and we can share some more later on. But I think these poor people have. Um, Hippie was like a permutation of hipster.
Yeah.
Okay, and the one thing that I have in the article supposedly in Newsweek is quote usually exotically dressed and quote given to the use of hallucinogenic drugs.
Hmm.
Also that same year, Far Out enters the lexicon uh, as a uh, ja- as a like a jazz solo that is really awesome.
Yeah.
They would
Yeah.
call that Far Out. So there you go. And that's the way it is.
I wonder if that the beautiful people thing I wonder if because of Marilyn Manson's adaptation of because he took Marilyn from Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
I wonder if that's why he named his one song "The Beautiful People." That's an
It
interesting.
it could be. She was actually um she was actually there was another word and I didn't put it in my list because it wasn't that interesting, but there was a word um there was a word for what she was, and I don't hang on, hold on. Let's reopen that closed tab and
Irate
let's
says groovy came from jazz wax.
let's see. Mhm. All right. Let's open the other closed tab. Ah, there it is. Faux Shizzle, 2005. Muffin top. Peeps. let's see, Hella uh, Whale Tail. I love that from 2001.
Whale tail?
You know what a whale tail is?
No.
It's a low-rise jean and a thong underwear.
Oh,
It looks
God.
like the fluke of a whale coming out of your jeans.
See, I knew why I don't. I see. There's another reason not to like thongs. That's ugly as fuck.
Yeah, I was just going to say the mechanics of thongs don't make sense to this man.
I am down with the whale tails, says Fright Supremacy. Hey, Ghastly. How you doing, bud?
Let's see. The bomb. Nope, not tidy whities. Cool. Trash talk. No. F bomb. Couch surfing. Stud muffin. Radness. Major beatbox buff.
Oh, that's
Chill
cool.
pill. Frizzy.
Greg Rogers says, I looked up the word nerd and it says that it was used in Dr. Seuss's book If I Ran the Zoo in 1950. That's cool.
Yes, it was, but not as the word nerd. I saw that too. It did not mean nerd. I
No.
don't think it just
It was one of Dr. Seuss's silly
word. Yes,
words.
so he used to write words and he'd say, "I'll only use 17 letters, and I'll write a book with 17 letters." That was why his words sounded so funny.
Yeah.
And the nerd is, yeah, that's what happens is they do a LexisNexis search, which is basically what you're getting when you do a Google search. You're getting kind of the tail end of a LexisNexis search, and it's just a string search through all printed material of all time, and that string comes up. You can probably come up with any RD as somebody's automatically generated password key too. Let's see, hang on one second. Hardball, no. See, Detox, no. Motorhead, that was a fun one. Carbo, no. Motorhead came out in 1974, and it was for somebody who really likes motorcycles. The next year, it is the name of a great band in 1975, so it was not.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Guilt Trip, nope. Deadheads, nope. Dorky, I'm almost there.
I was going to say, I found a really fucked up article.
Spippy, Freak Flag, I'm almost there. Kegger, hang with me. Shucks, Mickey Mouse, nope. Drop Dead, nope.
Drop Dead, Fred. That was a good movie.
Hot Dog Nuke, Ensville, no.
You really do have a big list of words.
Oh my God, you don't even know. You don't
Holy
even know.
crap.
And I didn't even do all of these. I haven't even researched all of these. Some of these are just on my list that I want to look up. Drop Dead, sashaying over from the fashion industry. It was a very dramatic way to put to describe something that was fabulous or gorgeous. Okay, so it was Drop Dead, and that was associated with Marilyn Monroe in saying that she was drop dead gorgeous. And I think that was right after her death.
Yeah.
I want to say that she died in
1952, I think.
No, 60. No, 61.
Was it 61?
61, because I remember when she died. I was one of the first ones there at the bungalow. And I kept Marilyn, we'd had a nice pillow talk.
When you were 11.
Something
or
like
10, 9 or 10.
August 4th, 1962.
Yeah, 10. You would have been 10 when she died.
Yeah, I was actually 9. I would be
9?
10 in 2.5 months. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And she was. I remember it was that summer. We were in Belgium when it happened, and my mother said she was a stupid woman. You took a bunch of drugs, and my father was just like, well, that's what happens to immoral people. The Calvinist.
Oh, Nothing for You here has actually an interesting question that
All right.
could bring up an interesting discussion.
Hit me, bro.
He says, "What would you do with someone who is so afraid of success that they undermine your success?" Um, if I'm sorry if this is off
It,
topic, feel free to ignore.
if it would be, if it would benefit them.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with someone who is so afraid of success that they will undermine your success if it would benefit them? Okay, here's the thing, and you got to understand, I'm one of the only human beings on earth who understands a little bit about nothing's soul.
Yeah.
This is not a person who thinks with their mind. This is a person who thinks with their soul.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to understand that in addressing a question from nothing. And you have to address it that way. Now, how do you deal with someone who's so afraid of success? Okay, so they don't want success. They'll undermine your success if it would benefit them. But if they are afraid of success, then they would avoid success. So they'll actually be in your corner because they would never undermine your success to benefit themselves because they are afraid of their own success. Therefore, they're really your best friend. I hope that helps.
Mind fucked.
That's you got to understand how nothing and I talk. And I have conversations with no one else on the internet like I do with nothing, and I cherish them. I cherish them. So there you go.
White supremacy says, "My position is to build them up so they no longer need to do those things, but it can backfire in strange ways."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It that if somebody is sabotaging my success, usually what I do is I I break into their house when they're sleeping and I slip like the E string of a guitar around
Yeah.
their neck and I pull it as hard as I can. And as I strangle the life, as I see the light go out of their eyes, I'm whispering epithets of hatred to them so they hear that as they die. That really does it for me. I walk out of there with a smile on my face and a totally new attitude.
See, when I get like that, I just turn on Mortal Kombat and beat the fuck out of
Exactly.
people. Because I have days where I'm just like, if anyone talks to me, I'm going to kill them.
Right, right.
And then I'm like, I
Everybody
think
does.
I need to go and play some violent video games for a
Yeah,
while.
it's therapeutic. It's your therapy.
It helps.
I just do mine in real life.
Yeah, but see, my way keeps me out of jail.
Yeah. Well, mine does too. I mean, just the exercise from digging the grave. You just feel good. You take a shower and
You
you just
see, but
happy,
depends on
happy, happy,
which
happy.
E string do you use. You don't use the high E one,
No, no,
right?
no,
'Cause
no.
that'll break.
No.
Got to use the low E.
Use the low E because you need plenty of tensile strength. And if it's somebody with big muscular neck, I'll use a couple of them. But yeah, it's the key. So nothing says it's my dad, Skep. Oh, that's complicated. You don't want to
Yeah.
kill your dad. I mean, you get a patricide, and pretty soon you're in the middle of a Euripidean tragedy. He's been doing things to prevent me from helping him get healthier and keep the family property. He wants me to use my talents to suit his agenda, which opposes my activities. Your mileage may vary, and specifically, all kidding aside, what to do about that is your call, and you're the only one who can make that call. For my part, I would assess whether or not I had to walk away from it. Is it
Yeah.
serious enough to walk away from? If it is, I walk away. If it's not, I sit down with him and explain to him, look, we can continue on, but it's got to be on this basis.
And
And if
doing
I,
that with family is hard.
it's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. Having those conversations, it's one of the hardest things in life. It's not actually the hardest thing to uh, to do, but it's
Family
one of the
is
hardest.
family is hard to talk. It's so weird because sometimes I find that it's easier to talk small talk with blood family
Yeah.
and talk hard shit with chosen family than it is to bring up hard stuff with blood family.
Right.
I find that it's like some of the stuff that, my mom does, I really should talk to her about, but I for some reason can't do it. It's like, and I sit there and I go, what happened to the person? What happened to this person? You know, what happened to the blind press that calls people out? Well, why can't you call your own mom out?
Because
Well,
it's your mom.
because it's my mom.
Yeah. Because that conversation begets another conversation, which begets another conversation. And there's all kinds of baggage all the way back through there that everybody's carrying. And, it's, I told you about this, that it's how I became estranged from both my sisters. I mean,
Yeah.
we're polite enough when we get together, but we'll never be close. We'll never be friends. I don't love them, not in any significant sense. We share a common beginning, but these women are social justice warriors who they cannot see past their ideology,
Yeah.
and they literally hate me. They for one of my sisters said I could never have any respect for anyone who did not want to kill President Trump.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh.
If not it, she said not literally kill him,
Oh,
but
bullshit.
but be so angry at him that they know that would be the best thing for the country. That would be the best thing for everybody. He deserves to die. And I just went, really?
Let's see, and this is something that, I've asked, that Pinkalo has asked people, and they can never answer. What has he done that's so bad?
He
And they all go, but he's a dictator. No, but
yeah.
that's not what he's
He
done.
said grab him by the pussy. He talked like he was a person in a locker room. He didn't worship women. He didn't worship feminists. What kind of a man doesn't worship feminists?
And then I say, okay, he said that before his election. What has he done since he was inaugurated that has made him so bad? And they just splutter at you.
Yeah, in fairness, he has not worshipped feminists since then.
Well, maybe feminists should do things that are worthy of worship first.
Well, no, I mean, from their point of view, feminism is defined as everything that is right and good. And anything that is not feminism is evil and mansplaining and manspreading and rape and violence.
Yeah.
To be against feminism, and this was very interesting. I saw a University of Michigan professor. I was reading one of her course syllabus, and she was explaining that anyone who is not a complete ally of the most radical feminism that they have on campus at University of Michigan is no different than a serial rapist. There is no
reasonable comparison.
There's not only no difference, they should be punished the same way. She said, there's no future for those people. They belong in prison. And this is a respected sociology professor at University of Michigan. Yeah, baby.
Well, and it's like in that Sargon video this morning with the clip of the Scottish teacher and the principal, I think, is who he's arguing with.
God, that was hard to sit through, even at 2x speed.
Saying, you should have kept your opinion in your house. And he's like, well, okay, so your opinion's allowed.
You could have remained quiet.
But my scientifically factual statement is not.
Yeah, exactly. It's policy. That's the last thing he said. It's policy.
Yeah.
It's the party has spoken. The party has new truth. The party has new speak. And you must speak the new speak. It really is macabre.
Well, and I got into an argument with my mom over a similar thing that our premier, Doug Ford, did. our Premier of Ontario, because she's upset that my sister is no longer on what's called OHIP Plus.
Now, is this Doug Ford, the flamboyant guy?
Doug Ford is
Or is this the brother?
Ontario's premier. He's the brother of Rob, who's dead now.
Yeah.
Rob died of cancer.
Crazy Rob.
2 years ago. Yeah. Crackhead Rob.
Crackhead Rob, who I loved.
Yeah.
But just, smoking crack? Really? I love you, dude.
So
our Premier of Canada would smoke crack too.
Exactly. So Doug Ford decided that people in Ontario who have private health insurance and are, because the Liberals put out this plan that if you're under 25, everything is covered under Ontario health insurance. Doug Ford came in and said, well, we're on a whole bunch of debt. So if you're on private insurance, if you're on, like, if your parents have private insurance and you're on it, then you don't get OHIP. If you're not covered under private insurance, you get OHIP. So my mom's all freaking out because my sister's not on OHIP anymore.
That's Ontario Health Insurance Plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mom's like, it's terrible. How could he do this to people like your sister and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, she's covered under your plan, right? Yeah. Well, but not everybody has as good of insurance as I do. Not everybody has the government health plan. And they need help. And I'm like, but they're on private insurance. Why should they double dip? That's not fair. He's not saying that if you're not covered, you don't get free insurance. He's saying you don't get both. Why is that a problem? We're in debt in this province. We can't be giving people who are covered privately free health care. That doesn't work. And it's not like he's saying, if you are covered under private insurance, your health card is invalid.
Okay, here's my question to you. Why would a company continue to offer health benefits if public coverage was available? Why wouldn't they say, you know what, we'll pay you the money that we're spending on your health plan and you can get OHIP? Why would they not do that? That's the economically rational thing to do if the coverage is equivalent.
Because the coverage often isn't equivalent.
Well, it's single payer, though. It's got to be equivalent. Everybody can go to the same doctors. You get exactly the same medical care as the Premier of Canada, right?
Yes.
So there.
He would just have so the people like my mother who are civil servants have a very good federal government health plan.
Wait! I thought this was single payer.
No. If you have, ours is a hybrid. So
when you have some private coverage, then
yes, we have some. You can apply for private health insurance.
I apologize. I did not know that. Thank you.
You can apply for private health insurance. However, what Doug Ford has said is if you live in Ontario and you are under 25 and you happen to be on your parents' health insurance, you do not get everything freely covered anymore. Which to me makes sense because if you are able to pay for private health insurance or you stay at your parents' home and you are covered under their plan, you're still going to use your health card to get to the doctor, right? You're still going to, they're not taking away the things that are already covered by OHIP. They're just not also going to cover you for the things that your private insurance would cover.
Yeah.
It's, but my mother is, Doug Ford is evil and he's taking away health care. No. He's not. And I keep getting into arguments with her because I'm like, there's nothing that he's going to do that's going to make Liberals happy because he has to come in and cut the budgets. We are in massive debt. There's nothing that he's going to touch that's not going to make someone angry. He's got a very thankless job right now.
That's the truth. And yeah, that's really true. And
Now, are there
Canada
things?
doesn't really have health insurance coverage as much as it has an open fiscal wound.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hemorrhaging money. You're going deeper into debt. Something's got to be done, and any touching of that wound is going to hurt somebody.
Costin is saying private insurance covers things that OHIP doesn't. Yes. Like drugs, dental, physio, chiropractor, stuff like that. But what they're saying is that under 25, Costin, if you are under 25, the Liberals had put in a plan that said all of those things would be covered by OHIP. And what Doug Ford has done is saying that if you are on private insurance and under 25, then those things will not be covered by OHIP. Like my sister, when she moves out on her own and is no longer covered by my mother, her insulin will then be covered by OHIP because she will be under 25 and not covered by private insurance. It's a very convoluted, complicated medical system.
Which means it's probably inefficient as hell.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the Canadian healthcare system.
Redundancies and gaps,
Yeah.
both. And here's the thing: you have a situation where some people pay for their own insurance. They work at a company and they forego increased compensation so that their company can pay for them to have private health insurance.
Yeah.
Other people work at companies that provide no health insurance and they get OHIP.
Yes.
Right? Those two groups of people are going to hate each other at some point.
Yes.
Okay. And those two groups of people are never going to agree about who should pay for health care. The person who's paying for their private care is going to say, no, cut my taxes and cut OHIP. The person with OHIP is going to say, no, don't permit private insurance and make the company pay taxes to support OHIP for their employees so everybody is treated the same. As long as you have that dynamic tension between those two groups of people, hatred will be the result. It's not good. It's not pretty. It's sad. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Boy, I guess I had the picture in my tiny but hyperactive mind that Canada was under a national health and NHS type thing, like
Oh no.
Britain has.
No, it's by province. It's
Okay.
province by province.
Province by province. So you could go to the Yukon, and they probably have no medical care at all, or they have witch doctors.
If you go to the Yukon and you're a resident of Ontario,
yeah,
you need to pay out of pocket for your care.
Full boat.
Now you can go back to Ontario, and I believe you will get reimbursed.
So you break your arm in Yellowknife, and you pay the guy there. You take your receipt. You go back to Ontario. You submit your receipt and get paid a certain amount back, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that's how it works. Yeah.
That's so inefficient. It makes my toenails turn black and fall off.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get injured in like the Yukon or something and you're a resident of Ontario, your Ontario health card is useless.
Good God, there goes another nail. Yeah, that is just okay.
Like I went
to can you flip the premiere the link for this? Let's see. I'm telling them how to fix Canada.
I can DM Justin Trudeau and
get that bitch on the get Pussy Hat Boy on the phone with us and let's get rolling here, because I
Oh,
have some wisdom for that judge.
Pinkalo says a woman had a baby in Manitoba 2 years ago, and I think is still on the hook for something like 30 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not only that, probably a fan of the Winnipeg Jets. That's just sad.
So chat's been talking about the transgendered military ban.
Why?
I don't know.
Is
But
is the military being banned or transgendered being banned in the military? Is that what's going on?
I think Trump has said something about banning transgenders from the military or saying that their surgeries wouldn't be covered.
Really? Trump, good boy, Trump.
I agree with that.
He's going to feel relieved to hear that.
I think that
I'm teasing you. I'm just teasing
I
you.
think that if you're going to like I think transitioning is something that's if you're gonna do it, I wouldn't outright ban transgendered people from enlisting. What I would say is if you wish to do your transition, you must do it when you are not deployed. You must do it between tours or something. Like if you want to transition before you re-sign your contract to re-enlist, you do what you do, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you should I don't think the military should pay for the hormone therapy or the surgery. And I don't think you should be taking your hormones while you're serving with your unit because those fuck you up.
Oh my God, yes.
And your team, your unit is worried about staying alive in a combat zone and doing what it's supposed to do, not whether or not one of its own is going to have a hormonal breakdown that day.
Okay, on March 23rd of 2018, President Trump banned transgender and transsexual people with current or previous gender dysphoria from serving in the U.S. military. However, the Pentagon said that they would comply with the court decision until it is reversed. The policy was stayed in Karnofsky versus Trump uh, on 13 April 2018 when the court ruled that the 2018 memorandum essentially repealed the same issues as its predecessor order from 2017, that transgender service members and transgender individuals as a class were a protected class entitled to strict scrutiny of adverse laws or at worst a quasi-suspect class, and ordered the matter continue to a full trial hearing on the legality of the proposed policy. On January 22nd, 2019, the Supreme Court allowed President Trump's transgender military ban to go into effect while the ban was litigated in the lower court. So currently, they are banned in the military. And if you are detected as being as having gender dysphoria, if you want to get out of the military, all you have to do is say, "I have gender dysphoria," and you'll be admitted out uh, out of the military.
So is that the new way of getting a Section 8?
Pretty much. It's Klinger
Yeah, I was gonna
in
say.
Mesh. It's this Klinger updated, and that's just the way that it is. Now, let me say this about that, okay? And I bet Pinkalo can back me up on this. When you're doing military operations, when you're at sea and doing stuff and stuff is happening hot and heavy, there is no time to think about sex.
No.
You don't think about sex. You just don't. You think about stress. You think about how am I going to do? I have this list of impossible tasks. How am I going to make them all happen with the men and materials and time that I have? I have men, time, materials, and money.
Yeah.
How do that as an officer? That's what you have. How am I going to achieve these objectives? Which, if I don't achieve them, technically I could be sentenced to Leavenworth for dereliction of duty. That
Yeah.
doesn't really happen, but that it's they scare the shit out of you at OCS. Uh, with the you are the officer, you are God, you must never fail.
Yeah.
Okay, and you you are supposed to take care of all the things that you're given: your men, your material, your money, your time, all that stuff, planning, manpower management, all that stuff goes into the calculus of how you complete all the things that you have to do, and it's always more than you can do. You never are successful completing all the stuff, but if you do good enough, it works. The Navy works. If you
Yeah.
don't do well enough, you'll be replaced. You'll be fired.
Absolutely.
And it is brutal. It is unforgiving, and but Miguel will tell you it's not always fair.
Well, Pincalo said
And the
it
shit rolls downhill too.
what Pincalo said was it's a mental illness. You can't operate the equipment that we operated with a mental illness.
Right.
Until they can get their suicide rates down,
Yes.
they shouldn't be considered.
At, he's absolutely right. He's right on the money. And the deck division, the the part of the Navy that Pincala was uh, striking for, bosun mate type stuff.
Yeah.
That's the heavy duty. Those are the guys that get killed in operations because they do dangerous work. There's a lot of dangerous stuff. The heavy loads swaying back and forth as the ship rocks back and forth in 10-foot seas as it's trying to do a underway replenishment between ships. That those are the guys who get crushed by
Yep.
those swinging loads of cargo, and or who die in fires that flare up suddenly because somebody's
Or a
uh,
line snaps and decapitates somebody,
oh yeah,
or
and
cuts
let
a
me tell
leg
you
off, or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, a quarter-inch steel line snapping will cut a man in half
Yep.
under the tensions that are common at sea. The um, you wouldn't believe it would surprise you the forces that are at play. There's a lot of dangerous stuff going on. It happens very quickly, and you can't have somebody who's having a bad day because they're upset about who they are, their boyfriend, or who they love, or whatever, and you really cannot have a deal. The biggest thing that I had to deal with was guys fighting, guys getting
Mm,
pissed off at each other, and that's just male, horn sharpening mostly.
yeah.
And there's ways to deal with that, but man, if it was romantic stuff involved, and having to protect women on board, because there are guys in the Navy, and Pincal can tell you, he'll back me up, I bet. Some of those people are not very nice people.
Yeah.
They're kind of a rough bunch, and they're not above raping somebody straight up, and taking somebody into a fan room, putting a knife to their throat, raping them, say, if you tell anybody about this, I will throw you overboard, you know,
Yeah.
and no one will ever find your body. And by the way, that's what happens. That does happen. That's the Navy equivalent of fragging. So anyway, my
Pink.
point in saying all this is that you have to have unit cohesion. You have to have
Yeah.
guys who are comfortable working together, and you can't have somebody who's on their emotional hands and knees uh, over, you know, something that's irrelevant to the mission.
Pincalo says, and if you do too good, you get sabotaged and fucking torpedoed. Yeah. Well,
He's not wrong. That happens way too often.
yeah.
Doesn't always happen. The Navy does actually do some good things, but yes, I have I've seen good people get shafted in ways that were just brutal. And one thing about it is, it may take a long time. The karma fairy is sluggish, but is awesome when she comes around.
Pincalo says, here's a funny little story from when I was in. Um, we were doing an ammo onload. It was 1:30 in the morning. I was load master. I checked to make sure the forklift battery was rigged. Um, and then he says, from it was wait, go 3 decks down, wait, was it go 4 decks down? Sorry, it was my turn to go to the bridge for watch. Um,
As I step
as I
off the
step off,
deck,
yeah,
here,
I
let me read.
yeah,
I'll
you
pick it up
read
because
it.
it's multi thing, and
Yeah,
it's easy for me
yeah,
to
you read
do.
it.
As I step off the deck, I hear, "Watch out!" and there's crash, boom. The guy who took my place as loadmaster did did not. It says did
Yeah,
it, but did not double check the rig before he let it go, and the battery fell several decks evidently. And if it's those batteries are freaking heavy. You get hit by if a battery falls on you from 20 feet up, it'll kill you. It will fucking kill you.
I don't doubt it.
He says screw steel, 1.5 inch double braid under tension snaps. It'll take your leg off. Yeah, he says that's nylon. Yeah, exactly. The stuff I was talking about, like 1/2 inch steel or 1 inch steel, that will cut you completely in half. It'll just like the movies. Just like the movies, it will completely cut you in half. There's nothing anybody can do except, remind you to say I love you, honey, to your wife as you die. Nothing you
What's
can do
that?
about it.
What's that movie about the Navy diver? The
Oh,
one-legged Navy diver.
yeah. Oh, um, but I saw it and I liked it too. It was about the EOD, the explosive ordnance disposal
Yeah,
divers, the EOD divers. Can't remember the name of it, but those guys are awesome. Those guys are the only guys who the SEALs will allow to drink in a SEAL bar. There's a bar in San Diego that if you're not a SEAL, you will be thrown out of there post haste, except for the EOD guys. The EOD guys go in there and drink with them because EOD is so exhausting and so amazingly it's hard. It's the only thing that is close to an equivalent of buds is the EOD training.
yeah.
It's amazing. Those guys are amazing.
Pingallo says at 3 in the morning, when the mess decks are throwing out the trash, the water is darker than anything you'll ever see. You'll never see anyone in that water.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely perfectly right. And especially if you make sure that the guy who's on the fantail, the guy who's at their after part of the ship,
Mm,
uh, and is the man overboard watch, is one of your friends who's in on the plot to throw somebody over the side.
yeah,
Never saw a thing, sir. Never heard a thing. No, sir. Didn't hear a thing. And that's all she wrote. Bye bye.
that's
Bye bye.
terrifying.
Oh yeah, and it happens. It absolutely happens. It seems to happen most often on aircraft carriers, but it does
I
happen.
wonder why.
There are a lot of men on aircraft carriers, and they are really, really pinched together. Higher density in terms of occupiable space than any other ship in the Navy. And I say any other ship in the Navy because the submarines are boats, not ships.
Yeah.
They actually have higher density, but they also have different folk. I was in the Navy for 5 years, Mr. Monopoly.
Ah, okay.
I was 5 years, 5 years before the mast. I actually spent the last 2 years on staff at the Naval Postgraduate School, so pretty cushy shore duty. I had basically a year of training, half a year of OCS, half a year of Navy Supply Corps school, then 2 years at the USS Kansas City, on the USS Kansas City, or in Kansas City, as we say back in the fleet, and then transferred. Had an interesting tour while I was waiting for the billet in Monterey to open up, being an assistant Navy exchange officer in the largest Navy exchange on earth, which was did a dollar volume that would have made it the second largest retail enterprise the year I was there on earth to Sears.
Wow.
Yeah, Sears was the largest, and the Navy Exchange Alameda was number two. And
That's insane.
yeah, and we ran it with three executives. I was one of three executives.
Men of honor. Thank you, irate prostate. The movie.
Men of Honor. That, yeah, absolutely. And the ending is awesome.
Yeah.
My allergies acted up.
Oh yeah.
So, that was awesome. I love that movie. I'm going to watch that again. As a matter of fact, that is a world class. Yeah, he's right. Yeah, Pink Hal's right. It's not EOD. It's salvage divers, and it was the Navy salvage divers of World War II. Thank you, Pink Hal. You're right.
Yeah, Pink Hollow
But
likes that
the
movie a lot.
EOD guys are worthy of respect, and what I said was true about their training and so forth. The salvage divers, though, are that was an amazing breed of men.
Yeah.
It's the technology has changed so much that it's fundamentally different from the way things were then now. But yeah.
My mother's dad was in the Royal Navy. And he told her that there were so many guys there that couldn't swim.
Britannia rules the wave. Rules the waves.
That always made me giggle. Navy guys couldn't swim.
In my OCS class, we had mandatory swimming qualifications. You had to come in ready to swim. The only guys who were exempt from that were the nuclear power officers. You had to have a degree in nuclear physics, and you didn't have to swim.
So as long as you could brain, you didn't have to swim.
That's the truth. Those guys were very, very smart guys. But and actually, there were 3 of them in my company. 2 of them were very squared away officers, had a lot of respect for them, and one of them was the biggest piece of shit. And he was the smartest one of all. And he was the biggest piece of shit I knew in the Navy.
Isn't that how it always works?
He was an independent little prick from Missouri. I'm going to tell you a sea story about this guy. He didn't take showers.
Ew.
He didn't. Yeah, I know. And blind, it was just as bad as you think.
How could you work so hard and sweat all the time and not want to take a shower?
And he was not only in my company, he was in my platoon.
Oh no.
So I'm like around this guy. I'm standing shoulder to shoulder, at attention. We're doing stuff together all the time.
Share barracks too?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Well, he was not my roommate, but he roomed in the next room over, and we could smell him when he had walked down the hall. So we decided to play a little trick on Jerry, and he thought he was going to have liberty one Saturday, and we all went in his room, and we hauled his ass out to the head, and our company officer, lieutenant, stuck his head out, and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "We're going to help Officer Candidate Gullickson with his personal hygiene." And he just looked at us and said, "No, don't hurt him." And he went back in his office, and Jerry just looked at him. He was horrified. He thought we were going to beat the shit out of him. We didn't. We shoved him in the showers, one of these showers, where 4 people can take a, there's 4 nozzles and all that.
Yeah.
Big industrial shower type thing. And we got him in there, and I was one of the 2 people who was tasked. And I told him, I said, "You are going to clean yourself, or I'm going to clean you. And if I have to clean you, you're not going to like the experience." And I just remember that every other word out of my mouth was "motherfucker." And his eyes were huge. The rest of the company was there, including Danny. I'm not going to dox him, but including my roommate, who was a SEAL, who was a full-blown real SEAL.
Oh, God.
We had.
Why am I picturing Arme in
he was what they called one of the Smurfs, one of the SEAL Smurfs.
Right.
Dan could walk a quarter of a mile on his hands.
Jesus Christ.
I saw him do it. So he won $100 walking a quarter of a mile on his hands. He was an amazing physical specimen. And Sharp just stood there. Danny just stood there, just looking at him. That's all he had to do was just stare at him. And Gullickson started to wash himself. And I said, "Harder, scrub yourself." I remember telling him to wash his hair again. And then I went over and smelled him. I said, "You're not clean yet. Do it again."
Jesus Christ.
I'm standing there, water all over me. You know, the one of the other guys is in there. We were the two enforcers. We are going to make sure it happened, and we humiliated that guy. We stripped his clothes off. We stripped his clothes off and threw him in the shower and made him take a shower, and said, "This is going to happen every single time we can smell you. If we ever smell you again, you can count on this happening the next Saturday that comes up. You will not have liberty. You will come in here, and it's going to get rougher and rougher." You know what? He straightened up and squared away.
And who says that shaming doesn't work?
That wasn't shaming. That was threat. That was a physical threat. That works too. Yeah. This wasn't. So this wasn't a moral suasion or anything like this. This was, the next thing that happens is we start beating on you.
Who says bodily threats don't work?
There you go. There you go. Exactly. So yeah, and but I have a feeling that he went to a fast attack submarine and was an excellent officer, by the way. Had a fine career, and I'm sure that his shipmates would have appreciated the effort
your work
that we made 3 weeks into our OCS experience as third classmen there at OCS. Yes, I remember that day. And
Mr. Monopoly asked, was he your drill instructor? I highly doubt that they would get away with doing that to their drill instructor.
Interestingly enough, at that time, this was a little bit of OCS was run a little bit differently from the way it is now. Now it's done with Marine DIs. And AOCS was a separate animal at the time. So people have seen an officer and gentleman, and they think that regular OCS was like that. That was AOCS. So that's the aviation officer candidate schools, which is all about flying, learning to fly and stuff like that. WARS is about ship driving. Okay. Our military procedure instructors, which is what a drill instructor officially is called, came from upperclassmen, from first classmen who showed exceptional military bearing and could develop the way of speaking to the other officer candidates and could train them effectively. So our DIs and we behaved just like drill instructors and imitated them to the point of perfection. I think came from within, came from the first classmen, the guys who were about to graduate, and it was great fun. I just enjoyed that more than I can tell you.
Pincalo says that's called beating, better education and training.
Absolutely, better education and training. But no, we I used to get up there, and I even did the old line that was from the paper chase. You know, here's a quarter. I want you to go call your mother and tell her that you are not going to be an officer in the United States Navy because you are too substandard, you know, and I would just go on into a litany of all the things this guy was doing wrong. And you had to break these guys down because these guys had all just graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
They're on an ego trip of ego trips. You know, some of them were from, you know, pretty high flying schools. And you get them in there and you have to, you know, basically say, you don't know shit and you need to get your mind right so you can learn shit.
What was it Dennis Leary said? You're 18 years old. You don't know shit about shit. Pull up your pants.
That's it. Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right. No more whale tail. So there you go.
No more whale tail. Yes, exactly.
Anyway, enough sea stories. I always end up talking about myself, and it's so boring. Our viewer count goes down. People leave, and why do you let me do this, Press?
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
I find it interesting.
I'm glad you do. I feel like I narcoticized the stream. I put everybody to sleep with my, you know, back in the old days. We used to stare into the flames of the campfire. We didn't have televisions, you know.
We used to hang an onion on our belt, which was the style at the time.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Well, guys, we've whiled away another 2 hours.
Did we do that again?
We did do that again.
Let me get an appropriate word for us to leave on.
All right.
And the word that we'll leave on is Ensville. And this was a word that didn't necessarily refer to a specific place in 1957, but the idea of a place, the place that was much cooler than wherever you were. So to be in Ensville was awesome. That would be Ensville was the expression. You could describe things like bands or records as being Ensville. So it was an all-purpose adjective, adverb, whatever you want. If it was Ensville, it was good, it was awesome, and it's been Ensville being here with you today.
Awesome. That's a really cool word to end on.
There you go.
And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today. I enjoyed bringing it to you, and I always enjoy having Skep on Wednesdays. Please come by. Please come by and watch Minions of the Zoo tonight at 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central.
Yay!
And Friday, we'll be joined by Cognitive Thought, guys. So that'll be lots of fun.
Cog is going to come over.
Yeah.
Don't miss that, guys.
That's going to be Friday guest day.
Wonderful. Now, is tomorrow a short day also?
Yes, tomorrow is the short day, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Central, only for an hour.
What's shaking on Saturday?
Saturday, we will not be doing Star Trek because we're going to be at the family cottage doing birthday stuff.
Very good. And
so that'll be next Saturday. We'll be Shockwave from Enterprise.
Shockwave from Enterprise. So be there or be square. But we're gonna give you a break on Star Trek this weekend. Although, yes. Are you gonna do the Blended Special?
We will. Yes, we'll be back on Sunday in time for Blended Special.
I'm sorry I haven't been in chat for that.
Hey, no worries. You haven't been feeling well.
Well, yeah, but that's actually been a grandkid thing, and it may be another grandkid thing on Sunday.
Grandkids are important.
It is. It's hard for me. I may at least get to listen this coming one. I may not be able to participate much in chat, but at any rate, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. Thank you, chat. I just enjoy you guys so much. And thanks for spending 2 hours with us.
Yes, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.
Bye, everybody.